Welcome to The Writer's Dream. This is a show where authors talk about their books. They talk about how they write them, how they publish them, and how they market them. We welcome all authors and we welcome all readers, those of you who are interested in books. If you are interested in doing an interview on The Writer's Dream, please contact us through the Facebook page. We have a Facebook page called, guess what? The Writer's Dream. Also, you can see all of the interviews, and there are over 100 now on YouTube. Just search The Writer's Dream. My goodness. We'd love to hear from you. So without further ado, I am going to introduce my guest. And this is Izzy Doroski, and he is a retired senior environmental health scientist, and now he is the author of The Inverted Mask. Izzy, tell us about your book.
Thank you, Linda. The book is a sci-fi story, science fiction story, that takes place at a fictitious national lab located on Long Island. In my career, I spent 30 years visiting Brookhaven National Lab, and a lot of the book takes place at a fictitious national lab, very similar to Brookhaven National Lab. The story revolves around two main protagonists in the story, Dr. John Sanborn. He's a theoretical physicist who built a gigantic underground experimental device, and his hot fiancée, Dr. Marta Padmo.
Is she hot because she's radioactive or because she's sexy?
She's stunningly sexy.
Okay.
She's absolutely gorgeous.
This is what authors do. We create the people we would really like to have in our lives, or had in our lives, or would like to keep in our lives. And I can see from what you've told me so far that you are inspired to write actually by your career.
Yes, I spent a long time visiting Brookhaven National Lab doing inspections and Plum Island, by the way. That makes a cameo appearance in the book too. And the story really revolves around a missing top physicist of the world, Dr. Emery Hillcraft. If it was a movie, he'd be played by Harrison Ford. And
we'll talk about that.
He's a very shadowy figure. He was a top theoretical physicist of the world. And much of his work is incorporated by Dr. John Sanborn into his experimental device, which you go down and visit inside the book. And so what happened is that Dr. John Sanborn and Dr. Marta Padmo discovered nefarious activities had taken place at the laboratory decades previously. And they go exploring through restricted buildings, and they find some very terrible evidence that bad things had happened there.
What do you mean by bad things?
That the laboratory had secret experiments going on that parallel actually real experiments at Brookhaven National Laboratory. I'm on the Citizen Advisory Committee at Brookhaven National Lab, and they know about my book, and I'm surprised that a lot of them have read the book and they really enjoyed it. They're telling me. So yeah, so some experiments going on there, and they get into it and they find out, and since Dr. Marta Padmo is a psychiatrist, and she's also a health physicist at the laboratory, so there's a lot going on with learning about the past nefarious activities. What happened to Dr. Hillcraft? He went missing, and somehow this all ties in. And then also there's a lot of other interesting things happening that Dr. Johnson, it's a mystery wrapped in other mysteries with Dr. John Sanborn and his underground experimental device, the missing top physicist of the world, and his theories built his device.
What does the device do?
The backdrop for the story, I have to say that. Many sci-fi stories, they'll have some scientific backdrop.
Sure. And
quite often it's time travel. In my book, it happens to be the many worlds theory of quantum physics, which is real, which is a real theory.
Like string theory?
It's a little different. String theory is a fundamental theory on how the universe is composed, how reality is composed.
Right.
But
fundamental building blocks.
Exactly. The many worlds theory is an offshoot of quantum mechanics. That the reality that we're in right now is only one of infinite realities. We're a holographic movie where there's infinite holographic movies where we play different parts. Sometimes we're very similar, sometimes we're not even in them. By the way, that happens to be a real theory in quantum physics.
Right.
And it's gaining more and more support all the time.
Yeah, because it's based on the idea that an electron can be any place, anytime,
exactly.
Anywhere. And so that's kind of like when they talk about, in science fiction, they talk about everything is happening, everything in time is happening at the same time somewhere else in a parallel universe.
Right.
Yeah.
As Dr. Max Tegmark says it, we're made of particles that are in many places at once. So if we're made of these particles, we're in many places at once.
I feel that my particles are not always in the same place at the same
Yeah,
time.
we can feel that way from time to time, can't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, it's got a lot of underlying mysteries to it, and there are some action scenes in it. And I got inspired to write the book when my wife and I went to visit my sister in Nevada. We rented a car, we flew into Salt Lake City, and we drove 500 miles to Reno. And that journey there just inspired me to one day, just the scenery there, the desert mountains there, just unbelievable. It inspired me. Made me determined, one day I'm gonna write a sci-fi story. So that was back in 2004. And then I retired. I was offered an early retirement incentive with the Suffolk County Department of Health Services, which I worked for 33 years. And I took it, and then I had the time to devote some time to it. And I have to say, part of the story also takes place in the Catskill Mountains of New York, where Dr. Emery Hillcraft had a house, they found out. He had a wife and family that lived up in the Catskill Mountains in the village of Pine Hill. And by the way, Dr. John Sanborn and Marta Pello, they're going to get married. That's his fiance. And in one part of the book, they make a trip to have a little vacation because they like to go hiking. And they stay in the Pine Hill village. And by the way, I did a library talk there in the village of Pine Hill, and I was very well received, very warmly received by the community. And actually, the Pine Hill librarian is mentioned in my book. And so they end up staying in a beautiful inn. In the middle of the night, they get up and they're interested, and they find out that Dr. Emery Hillcraft had a house there. So they go walk by it in the middle of the night with a flashlight, and then they end up breaking into the house, and they go inside, and they go up the stairs, but various things happen, and they find something in there. But I'm not going to tell you what it is.
No, of course not.
And you have to read the book.
Yeah, absolutely.
They do get caught inside the house, though. So, you know.
I won't even ask you by whom.
No, I can't tell.
So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about setting. A lot of it is set in Brookhaven, sort of a fictitious lab based on
Ridgewood.
Yeah, Ridgewood. Okay, and
Which would correspond to Upton.
so when you worked as an environmental health scientist, you got to see parts of Brookhaven Lab that the public rarely sees, because they're open to the public. They have a museum and whatnot there. So have you pretty much picked and chosen those settings that kind of fit into your plot?
That's right. Well, Brookhaven National Lab had 3 reactors there, and 2 of the reactors are in my book. And you actually get a tour of the graphite reactor. By the way, that was the first peacetime reactor in the world.
Right.
It was built there. It was built in 1950. Eisenhower actually came to visit it. And so you actually get a tour of that graphite reactor. There's something nefarious going on with that reactor, too, that they find out later on. And I do mention the high-flux beam reactor. By the way, I was stationed there for a full year in '97 when they found out that reactor had leaked tritium into the groundwater. So I really enjoyed my time at Brookhaven National Lab. The laboratory is just a fantastic place. And I just thought it made a great setting for the book.
Oh, sure.
And by the way, there is a big accelerator in my book, underground accelerator, just like they have at Brookhaven National Lab. It's much bigger than the one at Brookhaven National Lab. The one at Brookhaven National Lab is called the RHIC, the Relativistic Heavy Ion Collider. In my book, it's called the HITS, the acronym for the Heavy Ion Target Super Collider. And my accelerator is so large that part of it goes underneath Long Island Sound. And you actually get part of a tour of that also.
Well, the accelerator at Brookhaven is like a mile in diameter, isn't it?
It's a little bit bigger than that. Yeah, it's about 2 miles. Yeah. Oh, wow. And I actually had to walk that in my job. And they
didn't give you a bicycle? No. I have friends I have relatives who work at Argonne, and they have to use bicycles to do because it's so big.
Yep.
We should explain this to the viewers, that it's a particle accelerator. Right. It's like a big wheel.
It's actually the second largest particle accelerator in the world.
CERN is the biggest?
That's correct. CERN is the largest accelerator
we should explain
in the world.
this.
About 18 miles in circumference, CERN is, and the one here in Brookhaven is about 2 miles.
Right.
And they have 4 detectors. You do visit a detector in my book. And so it's called the PIX detector, P-I-X-X, it's an acronym.
So explain to the listeners what a particle accelerator is.
Particle accelerator is it's a very large tube that's built that has very sophisticated computer-controlled magnets in it. and they have to have pre-accelerators where they'll take particles, they'll either take ions of gold or lead, or they'll take
A charged particle, right?
a charged particle, yeah, that's correct, or protons, or they can take protons, and they can pre-accelerate them, send them into the larger accelerator, and they can accelerate them close to the speed of light. You can't go to the speed of light according to Einstein. Your mass will become infinite. And then they smash them into a target. And it's just like if scientists wanted to find out what's in a pocket watch, and you took your pocket watch and you threw it at 500 miles an hour at the wall, and it goes flying apart. That's what they do. They study what comes apart when they smash it.
Right. That's a good analogy. And of course, because they're looking at things that you can't really see with the naked eye, they have a detector that shows what it is.
So in my sci-fi story, the research that Dr. John Sanborn, by the way, if it was a movie, he'd be played by a British actor, Alex Pettifer, right here. You can see it here, and you can see Dr. Marta Padlow.
We'll get to the movie, but
yeah. So anyway, his experimental device is known as the Quest Project, which is an acronym, and there's a gigantic underground chamber larger than 2 dome stadiums that you get to visit, and the control room that they put they have like a robotic track system, and in a clean room environment, and a device will enter into it, and it's known as a torcadrone. All right, and it's a very sophisticated device. It's sort of like a satellite for looking into the realms of quantum mechanics, and they're finding amazing things. And he might even get a Nobel Prize for this. So.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So like every author, we would love to have our books turned into movies. We would like some movie company to buy the script and make it into a movie. And you've already prepared a whole lot of information about how you would like this movie to go. You want to talk about it?
Yeah. Well, when I wrote the book, I wrote it like a movie. That's how.
Yeah, that's me too. I see it like a movie.
That's right, and I immersed myself during my writing, like I was inside this movie, and it was an amazing experience how you could just really get the feel for the characters, and the 2 main protagonists would be Dr. Marta Padlow, and she's actually a Polish physicist who came from Krakow. She immigrated to the United States. She was a physicist. She got her master's in physics. And then she went on to medical school, and she became a psychiatrist. She works at the Medical Research Building at Ridgewood National Laboratory. By the way, at Brookhaven National Lab, they do have a medical research building, and I inspected that also. And one of the interesting things about Brookhaven National Lab, when I inspected it, is they have cages where they have certain primates, and they would do research with primates and other animals. And you do get to visit her laboratory there. And she has a very large, mysterious creature that she's working with. She's working with a German neurologist.
Is that the large?
Dr. Hasslinger.
Okay.
And she's collaborating with research. She's got her own research that she's doing also, and with this German neurologist. And they're studying neurotransmitters, and they're working on pain-relieving substances. And one of the things that they're studying is isomers of LSD for pain research. And that's actually true. That's actually true that psychiatrists, neurologists throughout the world are working on isomers of LSD for migraine headaches and other pain relief. So anyway, that's the 2 main protagonists, Dr. Marta Padlow and Dr. John
Who do you have
Sanborn.
playing Dr. Marta?
That would be a Polish-Italian actress. It'd be Veronica Rosati. And that would be Dr. Marta Padlow. And the physicist, Dr. John Sanborn, would be played by a British actor, Alex Pettifer. So those are the 2 right there. But some other interesting castings for characters. It became a movie, and I hope there's some movie directors out there that would be so cool. Just give me a half an hour. I'll sell it to you. But the Dr. Hillcraft would be played by Harrison Ford. All right, and there's not a lot of him in the book, but very important pieces of Dr. Hillcraft in the book. It would be played by Harrison Ford.
I'd ask you if they ever find him, but you can't tell me that.
You know, you're going to have to read it.
I know.
Yeah, the book definitely is in some ways spiritual. There's a certain spirituality to it.
I think there's a certain spirituality to science.
Yeah,
myself.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. A metaphysical. Mm-hmm. That this universe that we're in is way more to it than we could ever imagine.
Right.
To it. Definitely some metaphysical spirituality to it, and even visionary There's some visionary aspects to it.
Absolutely.
And with all the underlying mysteries of the book. And it's a very fascinating location. Dr. John Sanborn, by the way, he has a beach house. He lives on a beach house, and he's living with his fiance. And I know exactly where that would be. That would be in Hampton Bays, Flanders, right there. And there's a perfect neighborhood over there, and with a county beach, because they do have a county beach. They go out there. There's also some ambient parts in the book. I wanted to bring in nature and the beautiful area of Long Island into the book, and the great Peconic Bay. And so they do discuss, and there's some philosophy definitely in the book underlying it, the story too.
So from everything that you've told me so far, this is definitely a Long Island book. This is really a book that shows people aspects of Long Island that they may not be aware of. One, that there is one of the most important research labs in the country on Long Island, and that's Brookhaven, which is really called Ridgewood,
right,
which is a place in Queens.
Right.
And also the beauty of Long Island.
Yeah.
So now, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about marketing. Publishing and marketing, simply because the authors who watch the show oftentimes have a story and they don't know what to do with it. So how did you publish?
Okay, well, I published on CreateSpace. All right, so technically it's self-published. And the name of my company was Existence Wave Media. And by the way, I just published a music album. Also, I'm also a musician. And I published a music album.
Tell us about that.
On Amazon. The album's available on Amazon. And the name of the album is Purple Clouds. So if you were to go, I also have a website for the book, theinvertedmask.com. So it'll tell you all about the book, all about me. You can actually read the first several chapters. I also have a very interesting column on my website called Media that you can go on, and if you go on it, you'll see interviews that I have done. And Book Realm is another column that I have, and I show you the science behind the book. There's a lot of science behind the book, a lot of quantum mechanics and other sciences in there. By the way, I have to mention, I have to give credit to Dr. Max Tegmark from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, who gave me permission to publish his famous Many Worlds Theory cartoon in the back of the book. Next week, I'm getting a book out to him. I'm going to sign it for him. And there's actually three other physicists that inspired me, along with Dr. Max Tegmark, that really seeded me with information and ideas that I expanded into the book and integrated into the book. So, but the marketing aspect, it's not easy. That's one of the most important things to do for a book is